Hey everybody, welcome to the Helm developer call for May 27th, 2021. Got it right this time. Let's jump right in. For announcements, we have 3.6 release. So go download it, check it out. Then also, Farina, you had some notes on here for the next releases. Is Farina on here?
I am. I think Bridget added this on. The next minor release is in September. That's when I set the date for, unless somebody has a date we should move it. I put it for the second Wednesday in the month after the next Kubernetes release. So we'll have about a month to upgrade Kubernetes versions and then cut our release.
All right, sounds good.
That's all I have on it.
And then Butcher has a note on here to talk about emeritus maintainers.
I like to drop those announcements on 2 minutes after the meeting started. Yeah, as is our tradition, we wanted to give a big shout out to the people who moved from active maintainers to emeritus maintainers this week. I know for sure Vic Iglesias, who has been on the project for a long, long time, and Brian Hardock, who has been on the team almost since the very beginning, have both dropped to emeritus. Was there anybody else, Farina, that I missed in that?
No, but I think we're going to have a couple others coming soon as well.
So it's a good opportunity whenever anybody moves to thank them for their service. Both of those individuals have done a tremendous amount for the project in very different ways over the years. With Vic's dropping off of org maintainership, that does mean that an org maintainer position has opened up, and Martin has been publicly nominated and publicly accepted his nomination as a new org maintainer. And of course, you all know Martin. He too has done a phenomenal amount of work. So there's a 3-week period during which anybody who would like to comment on this nomination is welcome to, and org maintainers will then vote to confirm or not confirm his new role. And that's kind of how the governance document specs it out. But anyway, I wanted to end once again by thanking those people who have been maintainers for a long time and who have now moved to emeritus. We really, really appreciate the work.
Thanks, Butcher. On to discussion, Farina. Reproducible tarballs.
Yes, so we've had a bug for a while. I think it was filed as a bug, where when you create a tarball, every time you generate it, it's slightly different tarball. It hashes differently. And that happens for a couple of reasons. One is the ordering of files on the tarball. And then the other is we inject the date into the tarball. It's one of the things that can be on it. And since your timestamp changes, no matter what else, you'll always generate a different tarball. Now, in some CI systems, and this used to bite us in the stable and incubator repos, every time we regenerate, because we regenerate all of the things, you'd end up with different hashes being generated all the time. And so even if you have the exact same version of something, say you've got WordPress and you've got a chart 1.2.3, you go ahead and you build it once, you get one hash. You build it a second time, you get a second hash for the generated build. There's lots of little places this crops up if you're doing hash checking and stuff, going, hey, my hash changed. And so there's been an issue filed for a long time that says, all right, let's make them basically idempotent. So you always get the same hash when you build it. But the question came up with me is, in order to do that, you have to not set a date, a timestamp on it anymore, which effectively sets it to 0. Is that a breaking change, or can we move forward with that?
Yeah,
that was my question.
Yeah. So there's some commentary that I laid in that pull request, and Baju, who's on the call, I don't know if that's how you pronounce your name, but he pointed out that there was a change that we made in Helm 2 where we stripped the modified time in Helm package. And then there was a subsequent request or an issue from someone else who said, hey, this actually breaks me in some ways. So we had to backport a fix back to there. So I did provide that feedback in that pull request and saying there are some other comments in that thread that suggest that there are other issues that might be causing the tarball to come up with different SHA sums. Apparently, there's a sorting order inside of a tar. If you sort them differently inside of a tar archive, you get a different SHA sum than you would otherwise. So there are other angles that we can go and look in there. And then in that pull request, there was some, there's no tests to actually confirm that we can, with reasonable doubt, say that the pull request will actually confirm and fix the issue. So I think those are the couple of things that we need to go and address in that pull request before we can go and approve it again, because we can't merge something that we know we've tried multiple different times and we just haven't come up with an actual fix for it. So I think spending some time writing a unit test that does race conditions and or not race conditions, that runs it in parallel multiple times and returns the result of SHA sums of the package, I think that would be helpful to figure out.
Would it also have to do with the library? Like if you're in different operating systems running the same packaging, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows?
BSD tar and new tar are two different things that we've
Right.
only discovered yesterday in our internal Slack, that apparently there are some inconsistencies between the two of them. So
it's gonna be hard, and it's gonna be hard to have the same tar. Is what you're getting, right?
No, I think there's a couple of things that are getting mixed up here. I think, Matt, you're absolutely right that we need testing. And the sort ordering is something that was in the pull request when I looked at it the other day for the files. Like that had been added in as well. But I think we very much need good testing. And so when we do an idempotent build, it would be out of our tar. And our tar system is built on top of Go's tar system. And that is an independent build. It doesn't shell out or use the other libraries. So we wouldn't have to worry about BSD tar being different from new tar. We don't have to worry about that. And so I wanted to just set that aside, because here I just wanted to look at the breaking change of stripping the data. The other things I think we can handle in the pull request, but this was the one that I wanted to hone in to know whether this had to wait until, say, Helm v4 before we could do it or not. And the date was the one thing that I could see being a potential breaking change.
Hey, I just want to plug in here. So if you go to some of these linked issues, I was actually looking at this several months ago. Removing the date does not guarantee the deterministic or.
No, I understand that. There's other things that have to be done as well. The date is one of the components in
I
it.
see. Okay.
And so right here, I don't want to focus on how do we solve the idempotence problem. I want to focus on does stripping the date, is that a backwards breaking change that we have to wait until Helm v4 for? That's the question that I'm looking to solve here. The other things I think we can solve in the issue, but the backwards breaking change is the one that I wanted to bring up here.
So Farina, this is Scott here. I was gonna say, given what I heard from Matt Fisher, yes. Given what I heard from what happened in Helm 2, yes. However, I just left a comment, if we could just solve this similarly to how we've solved other things with Helm commands for backwards compatibility. For example, could we have a timestamp flag added to, Helm package and just have that default to true, so that users who want reproducibility for that specific piece can just pass false to it. Would that solve the problem that you're looking to solve in a backwards compatible way?
Yeah, I mean, adding a feature flag does it, but this is the kind of thing that I wanted to bring up here to see what kind of guidance we give somebody on it.
Yeah.
And that's what I would suggest. That's what I would suggest if it were the thing. Either we wait till Helm v4 to make it the default, and then it's an opt-in. I don't know if I'd phrase it around the timestamp or not. Maybe, idempotent build, and then a note that this removes the timestamp. That kind of thing. So it can be targeted at the functionality.
That makes sense to me anyway. It sounds like it's already kind of answered, because I don't know how big of a use case this is, or if there's any human being alive or that's currently using that functionality, but we know that someone was, and we still have it.
Yeah, and quite frankly, there are thousands of people. There's far more people using Helm than who show up to any of this stuff. And so I think it's great that to get that knowledge from Matt Fisher, because I didn't know that, and so that really helps inform it. So, all right, I'll jump back on that issue and give a bunch of feedback, but I just wanted to clarify that first. Thanks, Matt.
Okay, and then next on the list, we had something from David P. Wanting to bring attention to a pull request. Looks like Fisher has a note that he approved it.
You're muted, David.
Yeah, let me unmute myself. Yeah, so it looks like yeah, what I wanted to accomplish is it was done really fast. You guys are awesome. So yeah, all I wanted is for the tooling to run. So if there's any improvement that he can do, he's got the automation help, and then we'll move from there. Thank you.
There is a comment that Baiju had added to the document as well, which talks about perhaps putting an automatic action in GitHub to automatically approve first-time contributor PRs. If you read the thread, so the main problem with automatically approving workflows in the first place was GitHub's trying to avoid people running Bitcoin miners effectively in their CI infrastructure. So the gateway to say you can't go and run a workflow if you're a first-time contributor makes sense in that way. So I don't think it's in this action. It's saying if you make changes to the GitHub workflow, then we won't, or then it won't get approved, but otherwise we will. But there are other ways to circumvent that, right? Because if your workflow depends on certain dependencies, like an npm install, for example, from your package.json, then you could potentially go inside of the package.json, make changes in there to run a very malicious npm package, and that will run a Bitcoin miner in your CI infrastructure. Right. So I think it's a bit more of a complicated, nuanced discussion there with terms of automatically approving things. I think the workflow of just going and approving first-time contributors and then going forward they'll be approved works in this case. And just
it's not a burden for the maintainers, right? If it becomes a burden, then maybe some automation will help to determine, whether it's a mining exercise or a legit person, like time, right? How long it's been there. Some criteria.
Yeah, I mean, like we could write some infrastructure around there to say, hey, this is a first-time contributor. Make sure to approve the workflow or something along those lines.
Stuff like, for example, it's been already reviewed. There's a reviewer looking at it, right? So maybe we can add criteria that says, oh, if it's been reviewed by one of the community members, doesn't have to be a maintainer, right? I don't know. It's just I'm just trying to look up for times. Maintainer times is precious, right? So. But that wasn't my goal with that comment, though. My goal was to just, in this instance, this gen has been waiting for 2 weeks, so that's all.
I'm not involved in the thread, but my perspective, if I may, is that if there's automation that's possible, GitHub would probably, improve their workflow anyway. So, like Fisher says, there's a risk that our automation would miss some things, and so probably I think with the triage option that we have that we have maintainers looking in, it's probably relatively quick to accept, although I'm never doing triage, so I apologize for jumping in for that, but
no, it's good. I understood.
Yeah, and I'm always a fan of making robots do more work for us. The last thing on the discussion list, I added a plug for a PR that I was removing. Actually, we've got one more on there now. So it's dealing with a section of code that has been historically very buggy, and we don't have the best test coverage. So if another maintainer could take a look at that before I merge that, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Um,
And we've had issues before with coalescing values and doing deeply nested merges and breaking charts in very different ways. So yeah, I'd proceed this particular PR with caution, because we have broken workflows before where we change how we coalesce values. So
mhm. One thing I did notice is that no unit tests got changed, just test cases got added. So that made me feel a lot more confident. And then Scott, you just added one about KubeCon.
Yeah, this is really more of a proxy note. Farina, I was wondering if you wanted to, if you thought we should chat on this call at all about the KubeCon NA talk idea, if we should just kind of talk about that within the charts team first.
What was we have our last few talks have been rather community oriented, and what I found in the past was there was a lot more engagement when people focused on technical things. And there's a desire for things like some of the feedback we've gotten from the communities have been technical talks.
Can
Now,
anyone else
we're
hear
on
him?
Helm 3.
Yeah, it's hard to understand what you're saying. You're coming in and out.
Can you hear me?
Better now.
Better, but sometimes it was like talking about bots.
Sorry.
Sounded like a bot.
Do I sound any better now?
Yes.
I think you do. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. No, I there has been feedback for our sessions to be more technical. People want to hear that. And since we're well into Helm v3 and we're not going to be doing any major changes before then, I approached some of the charts maintainers and said, hey, do folks want to do a talk on charts, a technical talk on charts and how we can help people have better charts and workflows? And so Scott had volunteered to be somebody to talk at that. And so we're just trying to see, are there people who are maintainers to get up and talk technical about Helm in our North America maintainer session?
I would, depending on if my CFP gets accepted or not. Because I'm doing a proposal or a CFP on the Helm improvement proposal process. So more community oriented work. But if that doesn't fall through, I'd be happy to go and do a technical deep dive. I think my last deep dive was more of like the migration from Helm 2 to Helm 3. So I'm assuming this is more of the actual packages underlying or underneath Helm, that how it actually loads charts and renders things, or are you talking more about a charts oriented discussion?
I don't know. In this way, I was trying to think, how do we help our end users be more successful in the charts that they do and they build and they create? That's kind of where I was mentally going with it, but I'm open to anything. I just really wanted to get more technical talk engaged and approach folks on that. So if we wanted to meet some other time to start talking about what would be good to have there, I'd be game for anybody who's up for talking to talk about that.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah.
Predicting problems, right? So if you can predict problems early, that's awesome. So.
Ooh, I like your comment, Bridget, about discussing Artifact Hub as part of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, I like that. As a maintainer of Artifact Hub, I like that. I'm not biased at all.
I was listening to a podcast where someone mentioned in passing that the Helm stable repository went away. And I thought, I mean, yes, but also no, that's a misstatement of the realities. And so it would be nice to disambiguate some of that in people's minds.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's several different, like, I think important topics that I hear about that I'm sure we all do in different ways, that we could cover. I think one is for not persona. Yeah. The user who is maintaining charts, and there's different things that they need to do and that Helm allows that user to do. And then there are other users who are consuming charts and trying to build their own CI around them and extend them and so on. Maybe even make their own charts that then use those community charts as dependencies and figure out how to make that workflow work well. You know, I mean, maybe there's a way that we can address a couple of the common use cases and just get a little, you know, do a little bit of a deep dive.
Okay. So a few people have expressed interest. I can start a doc and put some of this stuff in there and then share with the maintainers, and we can start to figure out who will talk and what we're going to talk about. Does that sound good? Nobody said no, so I'll take that as a yes.
Could this be a panel? Is that something that is possible, or do you think that that doesn't make a lot of sense with a technical talk? I'm just trying to get.
This is the maintainer session. Every
Oh,
project gets a maintainer section. So
Yeah.
this is something that, you know, the normal sessions have already been submitted and are done. This is a maintainer session that we're guaranteed as a graduated project, and they'll follow up on that in a little while. But I was looking for the content to get ahead of the game because we're usually late in submitting, and lately they've been community oriented, and there's this pull for technical. And so I'm just trying to get ahead of it here. But this is the maintainer session is the one that I'm thinking of.
Cool.
If you're remembering in the past, there used to be the intro and the deep dive. Those are just one thing now. So this is the 135-minute
Yeah.
Helm content drop that we get to prepare for the community.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
Of note, and I don't know, just real quick, I think they're planning in North America maybe being an in-person one too, just as a note, or they're going to try for anybody who isn't following. With a virtual element. They're not going to shun it, but it's maybe a combo, a hybrid, something.
And that was the last discussion item. So unless anyone has anything else, that's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, y'all.